John Smylie, and who is going to give us a very idiosyncratic view of Irish architecture. Would you like to take the lead here?
I'm here with James Stevens Carroll. He's going to speak next. Is James beside me? Yes.
Hello, hello,
I'm
hello.
going to share screen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hello. This is a brief presentation aimed primarily at students of architecture and colleagues who can't really understand why I'm a traditional architect. It centers around how traditional architects like myself see or read modernist buildings. The best examples to, I think, illustrate this are those completed buildings which modernists believe are their best examples. That is to say, the ones that they have awarded top prizes to. So I have picked 6 examples of award-winning modernist buildings here across the island of Ireland, some multi-award winning. So to cut to the chase, traditional architects, by and large, see modernist facades as structurally illogical, or structurally irrational, or structurally nonsensical. We see in modernist structures the abandonment of tectonics, or certainly the expression of tectonics, usually done in order to create some mere abstract pattern or fleeting sculptural effect. And whenever I talk to students about this, I prefer to start with this simple, let's say, comparison of brick lintels. The first shows the only way possible for brick to actually span an opening as a flat lintel. The other two, the soldier course and the stretcher course lintels, make no sense structurally or architecturally. The first lintel, dare I say, might explain in a single photograph why traditional architects have chosen to be traditional architects. So here are the locations of the 6 chosen examples of modernist award-winning projects on the island of Ireland over the past, 20 years. And 2 of them are Dublin, in case you're counting. Indeed, our first example is in Dublin, the Millennium Wing of the National Gallery of Ireland. A competition winner and recipient of 2 big modernist awards. This building presents itself as having a facade made up of stone blocks. And as we can see on the left here, the stone blocks are doing what heavy stone blocks are expected to do in a solid wall. The load is transferred from the top to the bottom in accordance with gravity in a logical manner. But alas, this logic appears to have been abandoned in most of the rest of the facade. For example, this large, very weighty stone wall panel would, of course, fall to the ground were it not for the hidden constructional assistance located to the rear of it. If the effect intended is magic, that the panel is floating in thin air, well, it doesn't work because everybody can see, if they stand beneath the projecting panel in question, that it is being helped from behind. And it isn't floating in midair at all. Like, nobody is fooled. And to the right-hand side of the screen there, what about those window openings that we can see? Aren't we missing something? I would say to the designer, like lintels. These stone blocks, if the stone facade were actually real, will not span these openings without collapsing. These arrangements are arguably structural nonsense in an award-winning building. So look at these 2 recesses. The soffits of them are made up of stones. We know without any architectural training that stones put here in this way will not perform a spanning function. The overall effect is unsettling to the eye. This lovely stone material hanging there in this arrangement has been robbed of its tectonic quality. This whole thing looks like stone wallpaper. This is a view of the magically floating stone panel at high level there from the side, from the street. And perhaps there's a connection between these 2 images here. Yes, nobody is fooled. The next modernist building is also in Dublin, a 1970s office block built by the establishment, the architectural establishment at the time, as an example of pure structural expressionism. You see all the floors are suspended off these black metal cables, which run down the outside of the facades. Well, let's see how pure it actually is. The original idea was that two lifts and stair cores rise up, and from the tops of these, metal cables are fixed, which support the floor slabs all the way down. A bit like a suspension bridge is supported off two vertical elements. The first problem with this is that reading the building from the street, unlike a suspension bridge, all those important vertical elements of structure, the lift cores, aren't actually visible. Also, as a pedestrian, you would need to stand back several hundred yards, I think, from the building to appreciate the subtle grooves. You can see them there on the roof, which merely hint at the presence of the structural cables emanating from the tops of the lift cores. When the building was completed in 1975, the cables at roof level could be seen, but the whole thing leaked, so they had to quickly add this roof. In reality, the view from street level all round is this one. The cables appear to hang not from the two lift and stair cores as originally intended, but from the edge of the top slab, as you can see, which in turn doesn't look like it is supported off anything, as there is a continuous horizontal gap below it. So the so-called structural expressionist concept, it fails on quite a number of levels. The building, it can't possibly make sense structurally to any onlooker. And on top of all of that, the floor slabs themselves purport to consist of these chunky cubes of granite stone. These apparent stones, we know, could never be arranged like this without collapsing. So authenticity is finally kissed goodbye for this award-winning Irish building. The next is a church in Donegal. In fact, a modernist architecture award is named after the architect who is now deceased. The heavy roof, as you can see here, and the cornice has deliberately been placed on top of a continuous light strip of glazing. The glazing would, of course, explode outwards if the roof was actually sitting on it. The supporting columns for the roof have been visually. The result is that the tectonic logic of the architecture is left unexpressed, and the external facades, it reads really illogical. You can see here that in the same building, some nice stone lintels, which is, it's good to see. Some more views of the outside there. And these internal columns, these are the columns that, through a very conscious effort, have been set back within the interior of the building. Unfortunately, to make the exterior of the building look structurally irrational. Next building. The facade of this Irish Language Centre from 2010, quite recent, is peppered with bits of structure that could never stand up if they weren't supported somehow using fixings that are completely out of sight. Most of the facade, architectonically speaking, it doesn't make any structural sense. Whole concrete panels hold themselves out for some reason to be resting upon glass curtain walling panels. For example, immediately to the right of that Culture Land signage, we have the following. At fourth floor level, I guess, if you're watching from the USA, we have around about a 3-meter high concrete panel, as you can see there, which is saying to us that it is resting upon nothing more than the yellow curtain walling below it. Third floor level in the USA is the yellow curtain walling, telling us that it in turn is resting upon another panel of yellow curtain walling below, but just on the right-hand edge of it. At first floor level, second floor level in the USA, this latter yellow curtain walling panel is telling us that it has no support at all, as below it there is nothing but an open passageway. From top to bottom, this is architecture which is willfully devoid of any overt structural expression. Any and all structural fixings are hidden, So if architecture is, as traditional architects understand it to be, built around the celebration of structure, well then I'll leave it to you to find a word for the creation of buildings like this. The next example is a replacement theatre in Belfast, where I live. It was completed in 2011 and at the time won all the Irish Modernist Architectural Awards going. To this day, for the modernist establishment, this building stands as the exemplar modernist structure. As you can see, it declares to us that it is very much a brick building. But as we know, solid and authentic brick buildings just don't do this sort of thing. Bricks don't tend to hang in midair. Unless one has set out to create a thin stage set to try and look like a brick building, well, if this was the case, then the stage set here is very unconvincing. In addition, no window, certainly that I can see, and even the arch modernist, I would say Louis Kahn, who tried during all of his career to pursue authenticity in brick architecture, he said when confronted with designing a wide opening in a brickwork wall, and I'll quote him, "You say to brick, what do you want, brick? And brick says back to you, I like an arch," unquote. So brick here is clearly asking for an arch, but in this instance, I think we might settle for at least a chunky lintel of some sort. And here in the same building, of course, a brick wall, as you can see, abruptly changes plane at high level. But alas, there is no beam to catch it visually. The wall is not, of course, in a state of imminent physical collapse, thanks to all those supports that we can't see. But we can say that it is in a state of imminent architectural collapse. And the last example is a university building in Cork, a major city on the island of Ireland to the south. I've gone for this because this is a rare example of a modernist practice in Ireland using gauged arch brick lintels. And I must say they do look fantastic because they show brick doing what brick needs to do in order to span openings. However, zoom out and it's unfortunately back to type. Openings are given impossible brick lintels made up of soldier courses, where there should be either more flat gauged arch lintels or brick arches. Elsewhere, to the right-hand side of the slide, wide horizontal openings have suggestions of stone lintels, but these are far too thin to look like they would support the brickwork above them, and anyway have little to no bearing either side of the openings. And compare this situation to the lovely brick lintels we can see on the left-hand side of the slide in this interior shot. And unfortunately here, there's no consistency of approach. So there we have it. 6 of some of the so-called best architectural projects across the island of Ireland, according to the modernist establishment. Okay, so what might be the takeaways from this? Well, it sounds obvious, but the expression of a building structural load path from the roof to the earth is the very essence of honest and good architecture. That's the first thing. Secondly, how a building is held up as expressed in its facade should be clear and understandable to everyone. Thirdly, irrational or nonsensical structural facades cannot be read by people and so are inaccessible. In addition, their precarious appearance induces a sense of restlessness and unease in the viewer. So why design this sort of negativity into your facade? Apart from anything else, structurally speaking, they look silly. So I'll finish with students. Here's a game you can play. Start looking at buildings wherever you are, in particular those constructed in the last 70 years, and judge for yourself how structurally logical or not their facades are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. I would like to welcome to